The final realization: you were the gate all along. After the silence, after the dissolving, after the other side that was not a side at all, comes a stillness so vast it begins to whisper again. But this time, not from outside, from you. Not from your thoughts, your past, your spiritual ideas. From the space beneath all of them, the one that had always been watching, the one that never changed. Here's the truth that waits once everything else has fallen. The 13th Gate was never in Egypt, never in the stars, never buried under temples or carved in stone. It is not guarded, not hidden, not far. It is you, not the you you've dressed in stories, memories, goals, not the seeker, not the mystic, but the one who's been quietly present beneath all movement, all becoming, all striving. This is what the sages meant when they said, "The kingdom of heaven is within. Tatwam asi, thou art that. Know thyself and you will know the universe and the gods." They weren't being poetic. They were pointing to the unmovable stillness within you right now. Not tomorrow, not after more practice, not after more learning. Now. But here's the final paradox. You cannot force it. You cannot reach it. You cannot become it, because you already are. The gate is not something to pass through. It is what is left when the one who is trying to pass disappears. It is pure being, pure presence, before name, before form, before thought. It is before the beginning, and it's been waiting patiently for you to remember. You do not need to search. You do not need to change. You simply need to become so still, so quiet, that what is eternal can be heard again. Not as a voice, but as the silence beneath every sound. Not as a vision, but as the space in which all visions appear. Not as power, but as the soft immensity of being itself. So what now? Now you walk, not as a seeker, but as the gate, as the space, as the silent truth that no longer needs to speak. You carry no symbols, because you have become one. You offer no path, because your presence is the invitation. And wherever you go, others may feel it. That soft vibration behind your gaze, the echo of what they too have always been. The gate was never locked. It was simply waiting for you to stop knocking. Before the gate is a silence, but even in silence something waits. They say there are places the soul remembers, long before the body is born. Not streets, not cities, but thresholds. Moments of crossing, moments where time thins and something more ancient than thought begins to stir. The 13th Gate is one of these. Not a door, not a portal, a presence. You don't find it. It finds you when you're ready to forget everything you thought you were. Across deserts and ice, through temples and tombs, the myth repeats. A hidden passage, a final veil, one step beyond the known, a gate not marked by stone, but by silence. It is not guarded by beasts, nor locked by spell. It is hidden behind the very thing you call I. In the Book of Gates, Egyptians spoke of 12 divisions of the underworld, each with a guardian, a riddle, a trial. But always, there was something else. An unspoken path, one not drawn, not described, only hinted at in the margins, in the geometry of silence. The 13th. In Gnostic whispers, there is the journey beyond the archons, beyond the demiurge, beyond the stars themselves. Not into paradise, but into the womb of origin. The return, the undoing, the other side of creation. You can feel it, can't you? That sense that all your seeking, all your maps, all your progress has been circling something unseen. A center you couldn't name, but always felt. This is why you're here. Not for knowledge, not even for enlightenment, but for something prior, something before all form. The mystics did not teach this gate. They could not. They became it. When the final layer of identity was stripped away, when no image of self remained, there it was, waiting, breathing, silent. It does not open with effort. It opens with absence. Not when you try, but when the you who tries is no longer there. There are no instructions, no steps. There is only this. Let everything fall away. Let the last light dim. And then when even the silence forgets your name, the 13th gate will open, and you will remember what was never written. Before the hidden one come the 12 that prepare the soul. Before the soul can reach the 13th gate, it must first be shaped, cut, refined by the 12 gates of becoming. These are not places, they are processes, states, inner initiations. Each one strips you, tests you, breaks a part of you that was never truly yours to begin with. You will find echoes of these 12 in nearly every sacred system. In Egypt, they are the 12 hours of the night, each guarded by a deity, each a perilous passage through the underworld of the self. In astrology, 12 signs, archetypal forces molding the personality, pulling the soul through cycles of identity. In Kabbalah, 12 permutations of the divine name, 12 spiritual gates between the outer world and the throne of the unknowable. In the book of Revelation, 12 gates of the New Jerusalem, but guarded, not open, requiring a key from within. They are not metaphors, they are mirrors. Each gate demands a confrontation with fear, with lust, with pride, with control, with grief, with ambition, with illusion, with guilt, with memory, with longing, with the story you call your past. And finally, with the desire for transcendence itself. You think you are ready to ascend? You must first descend through these 12 gates, each one more intimate than the last, because the final obstacle is not death. It is the idea that you were ever separate from what lies beyond. The soul, in its ancient journey, walks through these 12 initiations not to be purified, but to be emptied. You do not carry anything through the 13th gate. No doctrine, no wisdom, not even your name. These 12 are not trials, they are unweavings. You may recognize them in your life. The gate of suffering when pain cracks your certainty. The gate of betrayal when trust dissolves into truth. The gate of silence when no answer comes. The gate of madness when logic fails. The gate of fire when your ego burns in vision. The gate of emptiness when even the divine abandons you. And yet, each is holy. Each one is a necessary death so the soul can return to what it never truly left. Only after these 12 does the ground begin to change. Not externally, within. The air grows still, time slows, meaning no longer matters. Because now, you are not approaching anything. You are dissolving into it. And just ahead, in the place where language breaks and vision begins, the 13th gate waits. The 13th gate opens not in space, but in silence. If the first 12 gates are fire, then the 13th is void. Not absence, but stillness so complete it cannot be touched by thought. This is not the afterlife, not paradise, not transcendence. This is before all of that. Before becoming, before desire, before the I who seeks awakening. To even speak of the 13th gate is to already miss it, because it cannot be seen, it cannot be imagined. It does not exist in any way that the mind understands exist. And yet, somewhere beneath thought, you know it's real. Not because you remember walking through it, but because it's been whispering to you your entire life. When mystics speak of ego death, when shamans dissolve into the great silence, when saints go mad with union, they are not entering something, they are being unmade. Not to become better or more divine or more free, but to become nothing. And that is the paradox. You do not pass through the 13th gate to gain something. You pass through when you are ready to lose everything. The ancients hinted at it. In the Tao that cannot be named, in the Ein Sof, the nothingness before creation, in the primordial waters of none where no gods ruled, in the void beneath Yggdrasil, not Niflheim, not fire, but silence. All myths reach back to it, but they never touch it directly, because to name it is to trap it, and it cannot be held. The 13th gate is not a path. It is the undoing of paths. It is what remains when the seeker vanishes, when the journey collapses, when the very idea of a gate is seen for what it always was, an illusion placed gently over stillness to make it bearable. When it arrives, or rather, when you arrive, there is no flash, no vision, no being. There is simply a knowing that is not knowledge, a being that is not form, a presence that is not separate. It is as if the entire universe exhales, and there is only this, and you realize the 13th gate was never out there. It was never a test, never a passage. It was a return to the unborn, the unmoved, the ever-present. You are not through. You have simply become what the gate always was. Not a being, but a mirror. Legends speak of a guardian, not of sword or flame, not beast nor angel, but something far more terrifying. A mirror that reflects not your face, but everything you've ever hidden from yourself. In the lesser gates, guardians test your strength, your courage, your worth. But here, at the 13th, there is no trial, only truth. And truth is not always gentle, because this gate does not ask, "Are you ready?" It asks, "Are you real?" Not the you that performs, not the one who seeks, not even the one who meditates or prays, but the one beneath the story, the one who never moved. If you cannot stand in that truth, the mirror will shatter you, not out of cruelty, but because only what is eternal can pass. This guardian is faceless. It takes the shape of your greatest fear and then dissolves. It may come as a dream, a sudden unraveling, a night where nothing makes sense. It may feel like madness, but it's only the final test of your attachment to the illusion of self. The Gnostics spoke of this moment. They called it the limit, the border between the manifest and the unmanifest. And what stood there was not a god, but a barrier of light so blinding that the soul forgot itself. To pass, you had to remember without memory. You had to step forward without moving. You had to be without being. The mirror holds your gaze until everything false in you burns away. Your beliefs, your past, your spiritual identity, your very sense of separation from the gate. Because here, the gate and the guardian are not two things. They are the same, and they do not open for those who try. They open for those who disappear. And here's the secret few ever speak aloud. The guardian never truly stops you. It only waits until you no longer resist. And when that moment comes, when nothing in you remains but what always was, the gate does not swing open. It simply is not there anymore, because neither are you. Clues of the 13th Gate, hidden in the oldest invocations of light and stone. Before books, before alphabets, before organized religion, there were utterances, incantations carved into walls of silence, not to explain, but to resonate. The pyramid texts of ancient Egypt are among the oldest known religious writings in the world, and yet they do not teach. They invoke. They summon. What were they calling to? Not gods in the sky, not spirits of ancestors. They were speaking to something within the soul, something buried beneath the surface of waking life. The words themselves are riddles, half-formed, circular, echoing, not meant to be understood, meant to be felt. Because they were written for a journey that was not physical, a journey through the gates. In these texts, 12 gates are mentioned again and again, each one aligned with stars, with tones, with transformations of the soul. But listen closely, there are moments where the priests go quiet, where the text breaks its rhythm, where a silence pulses between the lines. That silence is the real passage, because the 13th gate is never named. It is only pointed to, and always indirectly. One spell reads, "You will pass by the doorkeepers, not by name, but by knowing." Another, "He who is not weighed shall not need the balance." And another still, "He disappears into the fire, and the fire does not consume." These are not descriptions. They are initiations. Words designed to collapse the mind, to take language so far it breaks. So, what is behind language can be seen. The pyramid itself is a symbol, a gate in stone, each level a layer of the self, each chamber a silence, each passage a winding path inward. And at the center, not a throne, not a treasure, an empty space. The king's chamber is not a place of arrival. It is a tomb. And the tomb is not an end. It is a gate. This is the same mystery whispered in the emerald tablet. In truth, without deceit, certain and most veritable. What follows is not philosophy. It's architecture for returning to the source. The tablet says, "As above, so below," but few quote what comes next. Thus are all things created from this one thing by adaptation. The one thing is the gate, and the adaptation is you. The ancients left no map because the 13th gate cannot be mapped. They left resonance, symbol, geometry, incantation. They carved into stone what they could not speak aloud. Not instructions, but reminders. Reminders for the moment when the soul is ready to remember what it has always known. The final price of entry is everything you believe you are. Before the 13th gate, you do not kneel, you do not pray, you do not chant sacred names. You die, not physically, but completely, because nothing of what you call you can pass through this place. Not your name, not your mission, not your trauma, not your knowledge, not even your idea of being a soul on a journey. This is the final riddle. What remains when there is no one left to awaken? Throughout history, this moment has been mythologized as ego death, but it's deeper than that. Ego death is still an experience, still something happening to you. The true death is the vanishing of the one it was happening to. It is not a mystical high, it is a collapse, a hollowing out, a moment where everything inside you screams and no one listens because there is no one left to hear it. Buddhists called it sunyata, emptiness, not a void to be feared, but the absence of separation itself. Mystics called it dark night of the soul, not darkness from without, but the extinguishing of every inner light you once depended on. Alchemists called it nigredo, blackness, putrefaction, the stage where the matter is broken down into its most meaningless essence. Only then can transformation begin. The death of identity is not spiritual romance, it's terror. It's realizing that everything you've worked to become was just a dream you told yourself to feel real. It's realizing that even your longing to dissolve was just another veil. It's looking in the mirror and seeing nothing staring back, and yet feeling more alive than ever. Because what remains is not you, it is presence. Without name, without direction, without separation. Just this, unmoved, untouched, eternal. And then, in the deepest depth of the death, comes the first quiet whisper. Not from above, not from beyond, from within. From something that was always there, but could never speak until you stopped listening to yourself. This is not transformation. This is revelation. The kind of revelation that only comes when even the hunger for revelation has died. You are not ascending. You are disappearing into what never needed to be found. What waits beyond is not heaven, but inversion. We were taught to believe that what lies beyond the veil is a destination, a paradise, a realm of light, reward, or rest. But that idea was part of the illusion. Because the 13th gate does not lead to a place, it leads to a reversal, a folding inward, a collapse of all dualities. Not heaven, not bliss, not judgment, but the undoing of the very fabric of opposites. Imagine this. You step through the final veil, expecting to find an answer. Instead, you find that the one who asked never existed. You expect light. You find something before light. Not darkness, not void, but source. Raw, unformed, silent. It has no texture, no form, no edges. And yet it is all things before they become things. This is why the mystics always fall silent after their return. It's not because they've seen too much. It's because what they touched cannot be spoken of. Not because it's too holy, but because it's prior to language itself. You don't go to the other side. You wake up from both sides. You don't meet God. You realize the idea of meeting requires two, and in this place, there is only one, not even that. The Hermetics whispered of this inversion. That spirit is not above matter, but hidden inside it. That what seems external is actually the mirror of what you refuse to feel within. The Gnostics spoke of the pleroma, of fullness that is not spatial, but total. Total as in nothing is lacking, because there is no one left to experience lack. What does this mean? It means enlightenment was never up, it was never forward, it was inward, then beyond even that. It was not a state to reach, it was a structure to dissolve. And once it's gone, there is no next, only what always was. The other side is not light. It is the root of light. It does not shine. It simply is. The other side is not freedom. It is the death of the one who needed to be freed. The other side is not unity. It is the erasure of the need to divide. You will not be greeted. You will not be crowned. You will not be lifted. Because there is no you left to greet, no ego to crown, no soul to lift. There is just presence. Vast, immovable, silent, unshaped, unborn. And in that final stillness you realize the journey was never about becoming divine. It was about remembering you were never anything else. What happens to those who pass the gate and come back speaking in symbols? They walk among us, but they are no longer of us. The ones who went beyond thought, beyond form, beyond self, and then returned to the world of names, words, and clocks. But they didn't return as they were. They returned, translated, as if something inside them no longer belonged to time, as if they'd been hollowed out and filled with silence. They came back, but they did not speak clearly. They spoke in paradoxes, symbols, gestures, paintings, poems, parables, because words were too small for what they carried. Look through history and you'll find them. The mad prophets, the silent monks, the burned heretics, the poets whose eyes saw too much. They weren't insane. They were simply unable to shrink what they touched into language the rest of us could bear. They had crossed the 13th Gate. And when they came back, they did not bring doctrine. They brought mirrors. Bodhidharma stared at a wall for 9 years. Pythagoras spoke of harmony no one could hear. Meister Eckhart said, "The eye with which I see God is the same eye with which God sees me." Lao Tzu vanished into the mountains. Rumi spun in circles until language broke. Thoth wrote in emerald, but never told you how to read it. None of them were trying to teach. They were trying to leave traces, symbols, fragments, that your soul might one day recognize and remember what it forgot. Those who return don't seek followers. They often withdraw. They grow quiet, or they speak in stories that confuse more than clarify, because they know what they saw cannot be transferred, only pointed to, only evoked. They no longer fear death, because they have passed through a deeper death, the death of identity, the death of separation. And once you've been emptied that completely, even death becomes just another door. Not an end, not a beginning, just a change in shape. But perhaps the strangest thing about those who return is their gentleness. They do not impose. They do not insist. They simply are, present, still, unshaken, as if part of them never fully came back, as if the gate remains open inside them, a silent portal that breathes behind their eyes. They look at you, and you feel seen in a way no one has ever seen you, because they are not looking at your story. They are looking at what watches the story. And sometimes, if you're quiet enough, they speak a word, or draw a shape, or simply sit with you. And something opens inside you, not because they gave you anything, but because they reflected back what you had always been.